What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Drive for Show, DFS for Dough, here on Rotogrinders. Happy to be breaking down another week of golf action for you as we have the Mexico Open this week. So a new tournament on the PGA Tour schedule. Of course, we had the team event last week, the Zurich Classic. Noto and I decided to go a little bit lighter last week. Didn't do a whole lot in terms of lineups with the unpredictable nature of that event, but still interesting to see how it all plays out. And of course, Patrick Cantlay and Xander Schauffele, who we were high on, and I actually put them in my scores and odds picks last week. So that was a nice W, even though it wasn't a long shot winner by any means, still a W for them. And we were both on them as our top pairing last week. So hopefully, some of you guys out there and gals won some money last week with Cantlay and Schauffele winning the tournament. And we had another tournament marked by a controversial drop. Seems like that's a weekly thing these days. And Billy Horschel was involved this time. So, it's maybe it's just this age of media. But in any case, we'll take a quick look back at that tournament and then get you prepared here for the Mexico Open. I am Justin Van Zuiden, a.k.a. STL Cardinals 84. I've got Derek Farnsworth, a.k.a. Notorious, alongside me. Noto, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going good. Didn't have too much, invested in the last week's tournament, kind of like you. Took it light. Only made one lineup, but it ended up sneaking through the cash line. So pretty good week. And, nice hit on the Xander Cantlay outright. We think about golf odds, as 8-1 as being terrible. But, 8-1 in any other sport is, like the biggest underdog you can find. So, really nice pick. I haven't hit an outright for what feels like years, so I could definitely use one of those this week.
All right. I would be nice to hit a longer one, but we'll see. If Rahm wins at like 3-1 this week, I guess we're not going to get a long shot, but we'll see. Any other takeaways from last week for you?
I think we got to talk about Xander a little bit. So now he's won the Tournament of Champions, the Tour Championship, the Olympics. He won a WGC event in China, and then he won, one stroke play event. I think it was the Greenbrier. So, this guy just continues to win like small fields, limited fields, strange events. Does this change how you feel about him, as a player, as a winner? It was his first win in over 1,000 days, I read. So maybe this can get him going a little bit, but it's just strange that, these wild events, he seems to play his best.
Yeah, I don't know. It's strange. I think a lot of people will discount this event being a team event, but I don't know. A win's a win, and they looked pretty dominant and hard to beat. They would have been hard to beat individually as well. So I think we got to give them some credit, and both of them, and not discount any of it. So I don't think we can take anything away from it just because it was an easier course and a team event.
Yeah, I've always been a Xander guy. I just wish he would, win win one of these bigger events. But the other story I had marked down, Jay Haas and Bill Haas. Jay became the oldest guy ever to make a cut on the PGA Tour. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and they faded on the weekend, obviously, but it was pretty cool to see them make the cut. And obviously, you just had to keep making birdies there in the 4-ball rounds to stay in contention, and they fell a little short on the weekend, but that was really cool. It's not like Bill Haas has been lighting the world on fire either, over the last couple of years. So it was nice to see, and nice to see some guys. Obviously, the tournament is very important for a lot of guys who have fringe status or close to the playoffs, and that can be a difference maker for some. And we talked about it on the show last week. So anything else? Obviously, we didn't have any huge DFS sweats, not playing very much, but
still really a little bummed that Sungjae and Benyon didn't get it done. I can't wait to see Benyon back on the tour. I think he's pretty much locked up his card to the Corn Ferry Tour already. So we'll see him in the swing season, but maybe he'll get a sponsor's exemption in one of these two events or one of these events coming up.
Yeah, I read my hometown tournament, the John Deere Classic, has given a sponsor's exemption to Patrick Flavin, who has Monday qualified for, I think, 3 tournaments already this year. So some of those stories of guys getting sponsor invites and, using it to parlay it into some success is pretty cool to see. So that is probably good for just a quick look back at last week. We'll go ahead and get ready to move along to this week, which is the Mexico Open. If you want to chat with us during the show, you can get in the free Rotogrinders Discord, rotogrinders.com/Discord, and you can get in the live stream chat channel, which is a free channel. So you can either go to the Rotogrinders homepage and find the Discord through there, or just go directly to rotogrinders.com/Discord and find the live stream chat channel. So all right, Mexico Open, new course, new tournament in Mexico, which I believe generally no shot tracker for these events. I don't think.
Well, they had it at the WGC event at Chapultepec back in the day, but they haven't had it for the El Camaleon one, Mayakoba. So I would guess no, but I think typically they said they only have one set of trucks and of equipment. So maybe they will, with this being the only event this week.
Yeah, we'll find out. To be determined how much we can sweat the golfers this week. But what have you been able to uncover as far as the new venue we've got this week?
Yeah, so it is Vedante Nuevo Vallarta. If I say that wrong, I apologize. But it's a par 71, measures over 7,400 yards. Greg Norman did design it. Features paspalum grass throughout the course, on the fairways, the rough, and the greens. And it's kind of a cool way to get to the course. There's no houses or buildings, around the course. You have to take a little suspension bridge to get to the course. So I think that'll be pretty cool. Should be a fun course to watch on TV, especially with it being new. Plenty of water in play. It's right along a river, and then there's some lakes in play as well. A couple of islandish greens. But this is a resort course, and from the talk that we've heard so far, the fairways do seem pretty wide. So with it being a longer course and with the fairways being wide, on paper, it makes sense that the longer hitters would have the advantage here, but we really don't know. I'm not going to, force myself to target one type of golfer without, really knowing how the course is going to play. And we're probably not even going to know if they don't have ShotLink data, after this year, what it's going to play like. We're just going to have to trust our gut with who finishes towards the top of the leaderboard. In terms of comp courses, I'm fine looking at any of the paspalum courses. I've seen some people say Sanderson Farms is a good comp, similar yardage, similar setup in terms of the layout. And then the only other note, there are 5 par 3s and 4 par 5s. So it is going to play long, but I think the wind is going to be the only defense of the course, is what it sounds like. And I haven't checked the weather report yet, but generally that means we can expect a lot of birdies.
Yeah, I think it could be kind of up in the air as far as how it's going to play. There is a lot of water and there is a lot of sand on the course. So if it does get windy, potentially you could see maybe quite a few birdies and some low scoring, but also some big numbers for guys that get in trouble. So I don't know, it'd be really interesting to see that dynamic at play. For now, from what I can see, seems like kind of moderate winds, but hard to say. I mean, not knowing how impactful the wind is there, obviously, whether a 15-mile-an-hour wind is, a big issue or not in Mexico, this time of year, and depending on it, the course is pretty open. So I'd imagine that it'll have a fairly decent impact, but keep a close eye on that as tee times get closer on Thursday. Anything else as far as the general? I mean, with with five, it's a par 71 with 4 par fives and 5 par threes and only 9 par fours. So when you think extra par threes, still got the 4 par fives where you're going to be seeing, maybe 225, 230 yard shots for guys that are going for some of them in two. And you've got some longer par threes. Like, seems like a course where long iron play might benefit.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then my last take is just, with so many unknowns about the course, don't be afraid to get away from the groupthink. It already seems like a lot of everyone's targeting the same narrative in terms of bombers, and everyone's gravitating towards the same cheap guys. So don't be afraid to be a little different this week, just with so much unknown.
Yeah. I mean, it does tend to you tend to gravitate towards the guys that feel a little bit safer. Don't want to miss out on the obvious play. It's a very weak field too, so really will be an interesting event as far as how the ownership shakes out, how the course plays. We just don't know a lot of that stuff, and sometimes these are the tournaments that tend to be a little more unpredictable. So, anything else in general on the course before we start digging into the golfers here?
Let's get into it.
All right. So I mentioned earlier, Jon Rahm is like 3-1 to win this tournament. We don't see that really ever in this day and age of golf. He's $900 more than any other golfer on DraftKings. It's been a long time since we've had that spread. The field is weak, and right now we've got Rahm at 32% ownership. I don't think you're going to get a whole lot of people that argue against starting with Rahm in cash game, type of builds. He's the obvious number one play on the board. What the heck do we do with Rahm in tournaments and stuff this week?
Yeah, I think I don't know. I mean, you can always go, underweight on a player like Rahm. I certainly wouldn't fade him completely. I don't think he would be here unless, he had something to prove. We got the Wells Fargo coming up next week. And that's pretty much why most of the best golfers in the world aren't here. Next week's a lot bigger of an event. And Rahm hasn't won in 10 months. So I think he's, wants to prove that he is still the best golfer in the world. He's no longer, number one in terms of the official world golf rankings. And with Berger withdrawn, he's so much better than anyone else in the 10K range that for me, I would rather, instead of splitting my ownership up between Rahm and two other 10K guys, just give me all the Rahm above 10K, give me 50% plus in tournaments, and I'll take my chances from there.
Yeah, I would agree. I just think, you're going to hear a common refrain for like the next 30 guys is that most of them just feel overpriced because, again, you got to fill in the pricing tiers and the field is very weak. So yes, get used to, 10K for the current form of Patrick Reed, who's probably not worth 6,500 these days. It's just going to be sticker shock for a lot of these golfers. So I agree. Rahm at the top. I think you go significantly overweight, maybe even hit the lock button if you just want to, hope he wins and build the rest of your lineups from there. If you're building multiple lineups, I don't hate that strategy. Not one that I take very often, but I certainly think you can do that this week. So he's clearly the play at the top. Not going to get a lot of argument against that. If you are to pick maybe a second favorite in that 10, so the other golfers in the five figures, Finau, Answer, Kevin Na, and Patrick Reed. If you look at the stats, like Reed is 120 something in tee to green in this field over the last 6 months. He just shouldn't be 10K in any field at this point. So I presume, based on the numbers, that we're both out on Reed. But is there anybody you would consider like a number two in that 10K range?
Yeah, perhaps my model is being a little too kind to Reed. He's 22nd for me in this field, so not quite 120th or whatever he said. So I'm not going to play any Reed. I don't think I'm going to play any Kevin Na. I don't hate him as like an outright bet, but I don't like that he's just 20-1. If he was 30 or 40-1, I think he'd be more interesting. He is a guy that very good with his long irons, but historically plays a lot better on shorter courses. I guess you could play the born in Mexico narrative with Abraham Answer, but his form's kind of been off. He withdrew from the Valero and then missed a cut at the Masters. And then Finau he hasn't posted a top 10 since his win back in August. So yeah, I'm Xing all these guys. I'm up in my Rahm exposure and going from there.
Yeah, I think I'll have a little bit of Finau and a little bit of Answer in my multi-entry GPP builds. I am Xing out Kevin Na and Patrick Reed, so I'll have exposure to the other three. Certainly, you get the home game narrative with Answer. People are going to be talking about that, but I'll sprinkle them in a little bit in tournaments, but definitely the most overweight on Rom for sure. All right. In the 9K range, again, all these guys are going to feel overpriced, so it's all relative. And you can probably get like one guy in here if you're playing Rom. But Woodland seems to be the chalkiest. Woodland and Aaron Wise. You've got Kirk, Tringali, Munoz, Cam Champ, Brennan Todd, Russell Knox, Kevin Streelman. Basically your 9K options this week. A couple guys that stand out in there for you.
I don't really understand the price points for Cam Champ and Brendan Todd. I mean, Champ, he shows up at the Masters, and that's pretty much it each year now at this point. So I guess he does fit the bomber narrative, but I will let other people chase that. Todd, I just don't know if he has the length to compete here, and his form hasn't been all that great either. So I like Tringali. He's a boomer bust guy. I typically like him more in the 7K range, but he does, tend to play well in these weaker field events. Tends to play well on easier courses as well. Chris Kirk's a guy that I play pretty much every week. He's very steady. And then at the very top, I like Gary Woodland. If you take his miscut out of the Masters, he had 3 top 10s in his last 5 starts, and he never plays well at Augusta. He's number 2 in my stat model, so I think he makes a lot of sense. He's got the bomber narrative. He's very good with his long irons, like we mentioned. So yeah, I like Woodland, I like Tringali, and I like Kirk in the upper 9K range.
Yeah, Kirk is probably my favorite. Tringali, I think, is interesting, but Kirk is the one guy that just doesn't feel overpriced to me, relatively speaking, in this field. I guess it's all a matter of your perspective, but his data over the last, whether you take 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, pretty solid all around, comparatively speaking, in this field. So Kirk is my favorite in that range as well. I'm the biggest Woodland guy out there from his nice little run there back in February, March, but 24% for him. Has everybody just boarded the train or what?
Yeah, I think so. A lot of people are betting him too, including myself. So yeah, my plan, I'm eating the chalk with Rahm up top, eating the chalk with Woodland. And then after that, none of the guys that I like, once we get 8Ks and lower, more than 8% owned. So I think you can eat some chalk this week. But certainly, 24% for Woodland. He is very boomer bust. So it wouldn't surprise me if he missed the cut. So I wouldn't lock him like I would Rahm, but I do think he makes sense for the course.
Yeah, I don't know. That ownership just spooks me a little bit to kind of see where things shake out. But Kirk, definitely the guy I feel the most comfortable with in that range. All right, who you like in the lower part of the 9K range?
I got to get your take on Russell Knox. And then Streelman, he just hasn't shown a lot with his, his approach play is kind of trending in the wrong direction. Over the last 18 months, he's like 22nd in strokes gained approach. And then this year he's 66th. Over the last 9 months, he's 67th. So I don't love that. Matt Jones coming off of a good finish. He's a guy that can get hot, but I don't feel great about him at 9K. So I think for the most part, I'm just sticking in that, upper 9Ks. And we did skip over Munoz. He's been playing really well tee to green. I do think he's going to be popular, but if you want to play the off the tee angle, he's second in this field, strokes gained off the tee, second to Rahm in 2022.
Yeah, a guy that tends to somewhat be chalky in these types of tournaments when he's cheaper, but at 9,800, I think that will scare some people away. Again, relatively speaking, Doug Ghim is $8,900 on DraftKings this week. $8,900 DraftKings dollars for my boy Doug Ghim. So, Knox on these types of courses, if you're going to make it about the ball striking and a second shot golf course, it is the fact that it's somewhat of a lengthy course is a little concerning to me. And people talk about it being in Mexico and it's at elevation, but it's really not. The course isn't that much above sea level, particularly compared to some of the other ones that you would see in Mexico. So I think it'll still play as a reasonably long course by today's standards. So that worries me a little bit with Knox. But I guess you could make the same argument about Todd, and I tagged up Todd this week. So look, we're talking about embracing the unpredictability a little bit. If Todd's only going to be 4%, he hits a lot of fairways and greens. If Knox is only going to be 5%, he hits a lot of fairways and greens. I'll definitely be overweight on those two at those ownership percentages.
Yeah. Yeah. If you find an angle that you like at low ownership, you might as well go for it.
Anything else in the 9K range for you?
Not really, but I do like the 8K range quite a bit.
Yeah, the 8K range, I think you're going to see a lot of people. You start with Rahm, and then you can kind of build it out from there. And, maybe you're able to get still because, all right, so if I'm going to do like a sample lineup on the fly here. So if I start with Rahm at 11.3, and let's just say, we'll talk about the range later, but let's say I just find one cheap guy around like 7,000, and then you're at 7,900 on average for your remaining spots. So you can kind of mix and match guys around that 8K range to fill out your lineup. So you're going to see a lot of Rahm lineups that have, 2, 3, 4 guys in the 8K range, and not a whole lot of chalk in that range. Some guys around 8, 10, 11%, but I think this could be the area where lineups are torpedoed or contests are won if you pick the right guys in this 8K range. So who are you looking at in there?
All right. So up top, I think Pga is interesting for tournaments. He's been very hit or miss. The model hasn't loved him, but they kind of rate him out as it kind of rates him out as an average value at 8,800. So I take that as a positive. He's a bomber. He can put together low rounds, make a lot of birdies. So I'll have some exposure to him. And then move it down. I like Charles Howell III a lot. He's a guy, I ran some, comps for this course. I just did pass Palm, and he's second in this field on strokes gained per round on pass Palm courses. And then he's also third in the field in strokes gained on easy courses. So I like that. I like that he just finished fourth at the Valero, and his iron play is really improving. If you look at 18 months, 12 months, 4 months, it's gotten better over each time period. So love Charles Howell. Like that he's only going to be 7%. I'll go back to Lonto Griffin. Just more of a talent play than anything else. There's not a lot in his form that I could talk about that is encouraging, but most of it's been around the green. And if this course does play easy, if the greens are easy to hit, I don't think strokes gained around the green is going to play a huge narrative this week. And if it does, then, that's fine. I'll chalk it up to a loss and move on because we really don't know how it's going to play. But that's kind of the angle that I'm going for. He's good off the tee. He's good with his irons, good putter as well. So I'll get back on him a low ownership. And then at the very bottom, I like Mark Hubbard at 8,000. He always seems to play well in these weaker field events. He lost his PGA Tour card, and I think he's already got enough points to get it back next year on the Korn Ferry Tour. So a guy that's not going to take these starts for granted. And I think just some pretty good form, 3 top 12s in his last 4 starts.
I'm surprised that he lost his card. It seemed like he would always make a lot of cuts. I guess he did go through a tough stretch there last year for a while, but and when he was making a bunch of cuts, there's a lot of finishes in like the 40s and 50s. But definitely one of those players that'll will give it everything he's got this week to try to enhance that resume moving forward. So I like that call, like the Howell call. He's back. Haven't talked about him a ton recently, so nice to see him maybe getting back on track. And he's 42. I would have pegged him to be a little older than that. It just seems like he's been playing for a long time, but he's had a nice career. Ortiz, if you want to play, obviously the home game, the Mexico narrative, I don't mind him. He hasn't had a great season so far, but he tends to pop randomly. It seems like a lot. So Ortiz, I don't mind. Aaron Rye, I don't mind. And I think the Howell call is pretty good. So Hubbard, I think, is pretty safe at 8K. He's probably going to get you a made cut. If you're looking for a safe kind of mid-range choice in cash games, I think Hubbard is solid. Don't know about my exposure for GPPs. I don't know I question the ceiling just a little bit, but I think he's pretty safe. So I think he'll get you through the cut. All right, let's go ahead and move into the 7K range, 7,500 to 8K. So the first guy that stood out to me, and our ownership has to be low on him right now, but Like Pat Perez has made 5 of his last 7 cuts. If you're playing the pass Palom angle, he always does something on these types of courses. Why is Pat Perez only 7,500 and why is he only 4% owned?
Well, I'm right there with you. I ran my numbers, and he's 12th in this 12th in this field, which doesn't feel right. But yeah, I mean, he stands out as a great value. I've listened to a few pods already, and none of them have mentioned Pat Perez. So maybe that's why he's
Weird.
kind of flying under the radar. He hasn't shown a ton of upside, but
Maybe people are worried about him going and having a few drinks, and
that's a narrative that might come to fruition there. But he's used to it. I mean, he can play hungover. I'm sure he's done that a time or two. So maybe if anything, it's the opposite. All these young guys will be out there partying, and
true.
He's gonna be ready to go with coffee in the morning. But kidding aside, I mean, he had 2 top tens in February. Like you said, he tends to play well on these pass ball courses. Anytime you get him near the water, he seems to play well. So love Pat Perez, especially if he's going to be 5%, even if it's 8%. I love Pat Perez. I think Wyndham Clark's going to be popular, but I like the bombing and putting angle. You can play that with him. You can play with Patrick Rogers. You can play with a couple other guys in this field. So I'll have some of Wyndham Clark. And then Patrick Rogers right there. And Lahiri seems another one of those guys that just seems to play well on these, coastal tracks and these weaker fields. So I like him at 7,900 as well.
That's an interesting one. I hadn't looked into him super deep yet, but I like that call. Projections are going to rate out Stallings pretty well. I've seen a little bit of chatter on social media with Smotherman this week. And it looks like he's getting a little bit of buzz, which kind of shocked me at 7,800. You got to take on Austin Smotherman, other than the name.
I mean, I remember seeing his name a couple of times on leaderboards, but nothing looks that great in his form. He had a T25. It's his best finish in his last 5 starts. The short game looks pretty bad. He does have some good ball striking numbers, so that's probably why he's getting a lot of attention, because everyone loves the recent ball striking numbers.
Yeah. All right, I have to bring something up here. So if you're not a premium subscriber over at Rotogrinders, we encourage you to join. Check us out, Rotogrinders Premium. You can get the combo package, which includes almost every sport except NASCAR. You can get single sport packages, but with that, you get Noto's model breakdown every week, and in our lineup HQ, we show his ratings for the individual golfers. And now even the bad golfers, most of the golfers in the 7K range, if they're average, their rating in Noto's model will be like 45, 48, 50. And so here I see Rafa Cabrera-Bello in this field at 7,400, and his Noto rating is 9, not 49 or 59 or 39. It's just 9, and it's a big old red. So
who is it?
Cabrera-Bello.
Yeah,
9.
Okay.
It's 9.
That must be an error.
So well, he hasn't done much lately. So
I think what happened is he has a different name, and
it's the name.
system.
Yeah, it's the name issue.
So I'll have to go fix that. There were like 5 of them this week, and I thought I fixed them all. So I'll have to go.
I was hoping it was a legit 9, and he was just 50, that bad.
52.1 should be the.
All right, 52.1 in the instead of the 9. Well, fair enough. It's not going to show. It's not going to stick out like a sore thumb. I don't like him this week, but it just stood out to me. All right. We'll get to the lower end of the 7K range. I'm just going to recommend Smalley again. I know he always sucks, so you can ignore it if you want. But if you look at the 36 rounds, 50 rounds numbers, the ball striking's still there. The short game has just been terrible. I'll get sucked in, especially in this field, to maybe that turning around a little bit. So for better or worse, Smalley at 7,400 for me. What else you got in the lower end of the 7Ks?
I like Smalley as well. I also like Svensson, very similar in that both KFT graduates with some good form during the swing season. So we're open the easier course. Hopefully they can feel right at home. Smalley's more of the off the tee guys, Svensson more of the approach guys. So maybe if they could combine their skill sets, they would be perfect. But I like both of them this week. I like Nick Taylor down at 7,100. Doesn't look like he's getting a lot of buzz. The form isn't great, but he's kind of a lot like Pat Perez in that he makes a lot of cuts in some, much better fields. So I'm fine taking him at 7,100. if you want like a wild play, you can go with Danny Lee. He actually rates out really well on the past column courses that we were talking about. So maybe there's something there. I usually like using him more for showdown because he'll shoot 6 under and then 3 over the next day. And that is pretty much it for me in the lower sevens.
Yeah, I'm with you on Svensson. If this is a spot where I think you can take some shots on guys that have shown maybe some historical upside, like Michael Thompson's been a thing in the past. Kitayama has random, rounds, Bramlett. Like these are guys that maybe I can sprinkle in some GPPs, but nothing you're going to feel super great about. Looks like Duncan and Sig are some of the guys that are going to get a little bit of ownership in there, but yeah, that's about it for the lower end of the 7K range. By the way, did you mention when we did the course breakdown about this being a Norman design?
Yeah.
And so if, the whole Saudi thing would have blown up, like, and 10 of the top, like, what would they have done with this tournament? I guess they're probably contractually obligated. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but this just seems a little weird, doesn't it?
Yeah, we had one a couple weeks ago too. I can't remember what course it was, but apparently his name's everywhere. So PGA Tour can't escape him.
All right. Let's see. I'm stalling a little bit because we've gotten through this pretty quickly and the field is really bad. So 6Ks, anything fun in here?
Fun. I'm not sure that's the word I would go with, but
tolerable.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some plays. If you want to play the accuracy matters, you can go with Ryan Armour, pair him up with Brian Stewart, very similar golfers. In terms of little cheaper guys from the Corn Ferry Tour last year, Hayden Buckley. I mean, he was a lot more expensive than this in some of the stronger field events, and he's only 6,800. So I'll take some shots on him. Same with Lee Hodges. We seen him contend about a month ago. Vince Whaley's a name that, we've seen the last couple of years. He's coming off a back-to-back top 30, so I think you can look his way. Roger Sloan, kind of the same thing. But for the most part, I mean, if you can start with Rahm and not dip into the sixes, I think you're doing a pretty good job.
I was waiting for Gregorius the Wise posted about Gim at 8,900. I think even I have to be off of my boy Gim at 8,900 this week. I don't know. That's
simple flow chart. Is it the players? No? Okay.
Hey. I think and he had also asked about, Smotherman, who I mentioned, and Long being so highly owned. Smotherman, I've seen some buzz on social media. Long, I haven't as much. That one might just be us being a little hot on his ownership. Let's see. Yeah, we got him at 10. I think he'll probably come in a little bit lower than that. So I know it's a week where it's pretty easy to narrow down your player pool a little bit. It's, easy to X button some guys, but at the same token, like if it's not Rahm, if he just falters a little bit this week, it wouldn't surprise me if we had like a long shot winner here, like 150 to 1 guy winning. This would feel like the tournament where that could happen. New course, weak field, potentially a lot of birdies. Just the unpredictable might happen here. You just don't know. So don't be afraid to take some shots, either outright bets or in DFS on some, lower owned long shots. So anybody else that you kind of like that we haven't mentioned yet?
Well, I was sorting by the Rotogrinders projections, point per dollar, and like number 2 or 3 in the field, Scotty G. So got to give him a shout out.
He's going to be ready to go. He's not going to be out partying, and he's, he is going to be focused on the task at hand, which is winning the golf tournament. So yeah, hopefully he has a good week, and nice to see him. He's gotten in quite a few events. He's gotten a lot of sponsor invites, or I guess it's mainly the weaker field ones.
What about Scott Brown? He was like the king of the Puerto Rico Open back in the day.
Yeah, these are the events where he shows up, and he and Kisner, they played fairly well last week at the Zurich. So and he's probably a 1%er.
Yep, 6,400. 1 to 2% probably.
Yeah, I don't mind that as a sprinkle in some tournaments. He's shown some upside historically in these types of events, these types of courses. I can definitely see getting on him a little bit at that ownership. So we don't have anybody else, I don't think, popping over like 3 or 4% under the 7K range. So again, you're going to see a lot of lineups that go with Rahm, maybe 3 guys in the 8K range and a couple guys in the 7K range to round it out, and then people just won't mess with the punts. So took a peek at the FedEx Cup standings just out of curiosity to see where Scotty G was. So he's 200. Scott Gachesky, for those of you who have no idea what we're talking about, 202nd in FedEx Cup points. So see, these are the guys that, you look at the guys that are like 175th, like Cam Champ, 181st in points, and guys that, as it gets closer to the playoffs, they're going to want to try to boost their rankings in these weaker field tournaments. So, but Scheffler leading the point standings by a larger margin than the 6th place guy has for total points. He has a greater margin than the 6th place guy has total points. So that's just a synopsis of just how good Scheffler has been this year. Just keeps on getting it done. So not on the field this week. So that means everybody else has a chance. Anything else for this tournament that we haven't covered that you want to pass along?
I think we're good. How big's the player pool going to be this week?
20, maybe 22. Like I usually try to limit it to 24 anyways, and that's hard in like the majors, but this type of tournament, I probably won't have trouble getting it down to 20, except it'll be too top heavy. I'll have too many of the high end guys, so we'll have to try to balance that out a little bit. But
just skip the whole 9s and 8s and you'll be fine.
X them all out, Rahm and the values, and mix and match and hope Rahm wins. But we'll see how that goes. But pretty easy week to narrow it down for sure. All right, with that, I'll go ahead and get out of here. A little bit of a shorter show for you this week, but pretty ugly field and a new tournament. So just a little bit of unpredictability. We get back to the normal schedule next week with the Wells Fargo, as Noto mentioned earlier in the show, the AT&T Byron Nelson the week after that. And then we are already at the PGA Championship, which is taking place at Southern Hills in Oklahoma this year, the third full week of May. So that will be here before we know it, but we'll be back next week to break down the Wells Fargo for you. Should be a really strong field for that with Rory McIlroy as the defending champ of that tournament. So with that, we'll go ahead and get out of here. Good luck in all your contests this week, everybody. For Noto and for our producer, Steve, working hard behind the scenes for us. We appreciate his help on a Tuesday night. And thanks to you all for watching either on playback or live on YouTube and hanging out with us in the live stream chat. So have a great week, everybody, and good luck. We'll see you later.